Have you ever hit rock bottom? Have you ever found yourself in a situation that was so bad that you thought to yourself, I would change anything. I would give up everything just to not be in this situation?
Dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Well, the prosperity gospel preachers would have you believe that the answer to that is God is with you so you don't have to feel bad about it. But I say the opposite. The scriptures are filled with stories of heroes who have hit rock bottom, and their answer is, God is with me, and this feels terrible.
4 more weeks and out. Now I'm going to bite on this rock.
How do I use this terrible feeling to cooperate better with God, become a better disciple, become a changed person so that this doesn't happen to me and I can become the person that people can count on?
There they go over there! Get him! Come on! You're gonna get it, baby! Come on, bastard! Come on, you too! Oh, you want some of that?
We've seen it in Moses, we've seen it in Abraham, we've seen it in Job, we've seen it in David, and we see it in King Nebuchadnezzar in the book of Daniel, and that's what we're talking about this week. Kindred UMC live show features adults discussing adult topics, occasionally with adult language. It may not be suitable for young viewers. Please use discretion before watching. Hello all! Welcome once again to the Kindred UMC pre-recorded live show, coming to you not live, but pre-recorded from my front room, aka Kindred Studio A. My name is Chris Hayden. I am the pastor of Kindred UMC.
My name is Ann, and I'm the treasurer for Kindred UMC.
And my name's Andrew, and I'm the lay leader of Kindred UMC.
And we've gotten just wholeheartedly away from any fun random things anymore.
You said last time that we were going to.
I know, but I have to announce that I'm the pastor. People need to know that I'm the pastor when I start talking about the Bible and stuff.
True. You could say I'm the pastor and...
I'm the pastor and... I really, as a fan of Star Wars, am very reluctant to get on board with what Disney is doing.
That's a less than fun fact.
Well, it's true. I'm not into it. I had a fun party time with people who were like, I love it. I was like, I don't.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So hot take. We're in the middle of Daniel. The first section of Daniel. I have, in the past, I've said Daniel is in 2 sections. There's the first 6 chapters, which are like individual stories, and then the rest of the book, so it should be kind of like 2 books. And I have said in the past apocryphal when I meant apocalyptic. The last half of Daniel is the only Old Testament apocalyptic, not apocryphal, apocalyptic literature. So we're only going to focus on the first 6 chapters because they're little self-contained stories. So first 2 chapters, pretty straightforward stories about, let me ask you, because you guys have been around.
Yeah.
What's the setting of Daniel?
Israel is being attacked, or Jerusalem being attacked by the Assyrians.
I thought it was the Babylonians.
No, the setting of it is
right.
Is in Babylon.
Well, that's important though. So you were right about that's the audience that is reading it. That's when it was written, and then the setting kind of like goes back to a similar time. Yeah, which is what you were just saying.
When when they were besieged by Babylon and the temple was destroyed, and then Daniel and his friends are taken to Babylon to be incorporated into the culture.
And the first 2 chapters are about Daniel and his friends kind of finding success. You remember what we talked about last week, the 3rd chapter, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. What do you remember? Just catch the people up.
About all 3, or? Just
that 3rd chapter story.
Do you want to take it in? Or?
Sure. That's okay. So Daniel's not in it, haha.
Right.
But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay, first off, Nebuchadnezzar makes a statue, and he commands.
He's the king.
He's the king, right. And he commands that everybody bow down to the statue when you hear I don't remember all the things.
Well, and we don't have to go through the whole story, but yeah, you got the idea.
Like, click.
Daniel's not in it. What was the literary form of that particular third story? Does everybody remember?
Yeah, it's like a children's story.
Folklore, kind of campfire, children's story, right, yeah. Which is different from the first two chapters.
Yeah.
So we've got like these different, and I use that, I'm bringing that up to illustrate all these chapters are really self-contained stories. And we find that again in chapter 4. Chapter 4 is a monologue. It's a soliloquy for those of you who study literature structures. And it's a monologue soliloquy from Nebuchadnezzar, which is weird because he's the bad guy. But in this story, he's the hero. So in chapter 4, Nebuchadnezzar is the hero and he's giving this monologue, okay? I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's a lot. So I will read a section of it, we'll talk about it, and then I'll read another section of it. And that'll give us the basic gist of it. So this is Daniel chapter 4, verses 1 through... King Nebuchadnezzar... Oh, actually, I'm going to start at 4b. So when you read the Bible, by the way, and you see the numbers, that's not in the Bible. That's things that people later agreed upon. So the original text didn't have any of that. So we're going to start at 4b, which is their way of saying, like, we disagree about where you should have drawn the line on what verse is what verse. So, all right. Daniel chapter 4, starting at verse 4b. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was living at ease in my home and prospering in my palace. I saw a dream that frightened me. My fantasies in bed and the visions of my head terrified me. So I made a decree that all the wise men of Babylon should be brought before me in order that they might tell me the interpretation of the dream. Then the magicians, the enchanters, and the Chaldeans, and the diviners came in, and I told them the dream, but they could not tell me the interpretation. So it's very reminiscent of what we've already read. Dreams and interpretations, and that's kind of a theme in Daniel. At last, Daniel came in before me, he who was named Belteshazzar, after the name of my God, and who is endowed with the spirit of the holy gods. And I told him the dream. O Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, I know that you are endowed with the spirit of the holy gods, and that no mystery is too difficult for you. Hear the dream that I saw. Tell me its interpretation. It may or may not surprise you to learn that Daniel then goes on to hear the dream and properly interpret it. And the nature of that dream is essentially that King Nebuchadnezzar is going to be brought low, and he's going to be given the mind of an animal, as the language that they use, and he will be kind of cast out from human society, and like it's a bad dream. You know, and then we go on to verse 28. All this came upon King Nebuchadnezzar. So all the dream that Daniel predicted, it actually comes to pass. At the end of 12 months, he was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon, and the king said, "Is this not magnificent Babylon, which I have built as a royal capital by my mighty power and for my glorious majesty?" While the words were still in the king's mouth, a voice came from heaven. O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is declared, the kingdom has departed from you. You shall be driven away from human society, and your dwelling shall be with the animals of the field. You shall be made to eat grass like oxen, and 7 times shall pass over you until you have learned that the Most High has sovereignty over the kingdom of mortals, and gives to it whom he will. Immediately the sentence was fulfilled against Nebuchadnezzar. He was driven away from human society, ate grass like oxen, and his body was bathed with the dew of heaven until his hair grew as long as eagle's feathers, and his nails became like birds' claws. When the period was over, I, Nebuchadnezzar, remember this is a monologue. He's telling the story for himself. So when that period was over, I, Nebuchadnezzar, lifted my eyes to heaven, and my reason returned to me. I blessed the Most High and praised and honored the one who lives forever, for his sovereignty is an everlasting sovereignty, and his kingdom endures for generation to generation. From generation to generation. All the inhabitants of the earth are accounted as nothing, and he does what he wills with the host of heaven and the inhabitants of the earth. There is no one who can stay his hand or say to him, "What are you doing?" At that time my reason returned to me, and my majesty and splendor were restored to me for the glory of my kingdom. My counselors and my lords sought me out. I was reestablished over my kingdom, and still more greatness was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and extol and honor the King of heaven. For all his works are truth, and his ways are justice, and he is able to bring low, go ahead, those who walk in pride.
A quick reminder that we are raising money for Residing Hope, formerly known as the United Methodist Children's Home. They focus on a lot of things, but primarily what they do is foster care. And they are currently raising money for their back-to-school drive. Every cent that you give to this channel via the Venmo or the links in the description down below will go directly to that cause. And we're funded by an investment fund, so none of it goes to my salary or anything like that. It goes directly to helping children. Consider giving and give generously, please.
So I did skip over a bit just because it would take forever to read the whole thing. But first of all, are you familiar with anything according to like story structure? Joseph Campbellian, Dan Harmon is another modern iteration of the story circle, like the hero's journey. Does any of that ring a bell for you?
Yeah, I've definitely learned about it before. I took AP Lit.
Right. I took AP Lit. Yeah, right. Yeah. So this is a pretty classical, straightforward, like not very nuanced. Are you pointing at the?
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, sorry.
It's good.
It doesn't look like it usually does. Sorry.
Yeah, no, we're good. So we're dealing in this story with a very abbreviated classical hero's journey, and maybe the most important part in a hero's journey is something we now in modern parlance call rock bottom. Joseph Campbell would call it apostasis. It's the death of the hero. And don't take that literally unless you're talking about Jesus. Jesus literally dies. Or Neo literally dies. But all of our great stories have a rock bottom moment where the hero really has lost everything. Think Empire Strikes Back if you're a Star Wars nerd, like me. So this is the classic, just like epitome of rock bottom. The king has everything. God says, your hubris is a problem, and I'm going to bring you low, and absolutely takes everything away from him, gives him the mind of an animal. And it's only then that he can become something new that is able to extol and celebrate God. So my question for you all is, have you ever faced a moment that was really low, that was a kind of the catalyst for something new, for anything that changed you? When have you been through a serious transition, and what preceded that? And of course, as always, I'm happy to tell my own story while you think of yours. I
have something. It goes off of what we were talking in Bible study, which obviously the viewers did not witness.
You should check out our, we have a Zoom link, and if you are interested in joining us virtually for Bible study, reach out to us. I'm not going to give you the Zoom link publicly, but if you reach out to us, I will send it to you. You can join and be part of what we do.
Yeah. So one of the things that we were talking about is we were talking about bullies because it was based off the video from last week, I believe, when we were talking about that. And so essentially, I had repressed myself to be what everybody else wanted me to be, and then found somebody that I realized hey, this is somebody that likes me for who I am. I don't have to change myself to be somebody that they like. So I stopped changing myself to be what people liked. And I lost a lot of friends because of that. At certain points during that time, this person, Hannah, who you guys have seen before, was my only friend. We did not have any other friends other than that. We only hung out with each other. And we, it wasn't constant. It's not like it was like a year where it was like that, but it would be like, we would, find a new friend group and we'd hang out with them, and then they'd start sucking, and then we would have to stop hanging out with them. And it was a pretty constant thing for a couple of years where we would constantly think we found people that liked us for who we are and wanted to actually care about us, and then turns out they didn't. And so it was pretty rough, but it was like, it helped me find myself, and it helped me realize the kind of person I wanted to be and the kind of people I wanted to associate with. Because a lot of times the biggest problems were, their values were things that a lot of times I would just ignore that kind of stuff in the past, where it's like, oh, well, it's like, it doesn't affect me, so I don't have to worry about it. But then I got to the point where it was like, I have trouble trusting them as a person they think about those kind of things.
Because I can sense some social, political things. As much as you are comfortable, can you be specific? Because I think it's hard for people to attach to things when they're vague. Yeah. And so I'm not inviting you have to agree with this in order to be a part. That's not what I mean at all. But I think the specifics are actually really helpful for you to be able, if you're willing to share these were my deal breakers.
I would say the easiest thing that I feel like most people can probably relate to is that, I found people that it turns out that they had pretty lax ideas on how bad cheating was. And cheating to me, I've never actually been cheated on, but I've always had pretty strong opinions on cheating. I think it's a terrible thing to do to somebody. I think if you get to the point where you feel like you need to cheat, just break up with the person. Because obviously you're fine with the relationship ending, because that's what you're risking by cheating. So just do it. If it's that important to you, that
take responsibility.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so there were people that I guess didn't feel the same way, because they not only did it, but they weren't really remorseful about it either. And so even though I was not the one being cheated on, I wasn't in a relationship with this person, I was obviously friends with the person being cheated on, so I cared in that sense. But even beyond that, it wasn't even just protective over my friend. It was just, there's a disconnect with us here, and it's just not something that I'm willing to abide by. I can't be friends with somebody that thinks that kind of thing is okay.
Right.
And like I said, it helped me learn who I was. It helped me build up my own personality as opposed to trying to be the personality that everybody wanted me to be. And it led me into much more fruitful friendships, even ones that didn't last, because, as an adult, I'm sure we all know, sometimes friendships just end. People move away, or people grow distance. It's the kind of thing that just happens. So
it's actually very normal.
Yeah.
Even though it's very sad.
Yeah.
Because my wife and I have grieved that a lot, but it is kind of a normal reality of modern society.
Yeah. But I would not be part of this group here that I am now, that I cherish this deeply, if it wasn't for that. So.
You are also cherished, my friend.
That is true.
How about you? What comes to mind with rock bottom transformative experiences? And if you need more time to think, by all means.
I have to go back to Pensacola. Poor John.
A lot of rock bottoms, I feel like, happen in Pensacola.
Pensacola, I'm so sorry if you're from Pensacola. There is nothing good in Pensacola.
Florida loves.
There is nothing good. But that was also my college experience and everything too. So there were just a lot of lessons that I learned. I did not move away first for college. I finally moved out of the house when I was almost 21. So I was doing stupid freshman stuff at 21.
Yeah, that's a dangerous age to be doing stupid.
That is some real stupid
There's
stuff.
a wisdom to hey, most people start college at 19. Let's make the drinking age 21.
Yeah. You add booze on it.
There's some safety bars there.
Yeah, right.
Don't
get
worry.
the booze.
Yeah, you're still going to be drinking probably, but at least it's harder.
Don't worry, it was Pensacola. It's dry campus. And there was no liquor sold on Sundays. in most
Wow.
places. At least not Sunday mornings. I think you could get it in the afternoon.
I
like,
bet that was very effective.
it was not. But anyway, I mean, I had a great career and I lost it. Really what it was, I blame Pensacola, but I had a medical issue that started when I was like 18. And they kept telling me, oh, no, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. Well, I finally wasn't fine. And it got to the point where I couldn't remember I had no dishwasher. I had to wash my dishes by hand. I would come home from work and I would try to do the dishes and I would be in so much pain I would start crying and I'd have to sit on the couch and try and like just relax. And sometimes I could get back up and sometimes I couldn't. And like, so I go to all these doctors, and of course in Pensacola, there's nobody that could help me. So I had to like drive back home. I had to move back into my parents' house. I didn't even break the lease in Pensacola. I was paying rent for a place I wasn't even living in because I had to come back home to get treated and have all these things done. And it could have really been bad. I essentially did just give up on my career. That's why I stopped being a veterinary technician at that point, because it was too risky. Most places weren't really interested in hiring me after that because I
tried to keep it quiet, but I had a little burpee there. Sorry.
It's okay. But like, I was too much of a liability because if I got hurt at work, it would fall on them.
Yeah.
But I wasn't supposed to be doing half the stuff they needed me to be able to do. So like, it just became a thing where I was like, I don't think this is worth it, or I'm risking it. And for what? It just didn't make any sense anymore. So like, I had to give up my career. I had just gotten my license in the state of Florida. I had just gotten my tech license. I kept it for years because I was like, I worked so hard for this, but I got tired of paying for it. So,
yeah,
you know, but like, it was a pivotal change. It made me change things about who I was dating. It made me make realizations about what I was going to have to do. It made me, I called it a lifestyle change.
So yeah, and that's kind of the question. As you look back on these moments,
yeah,
can you see, and it's okay to say no, it's okay if it's hard, but like, can you see God at work in those moments and like what ultimately came of what's going on?
Yes, I can see God at work in it now, in a weird way.
And it is, I will say, very hard to see. It's hard to be in the moment aware of that. Because like, I think about my rock bottom moments, and mostly I am angry. And mostly when I remember that, I'm like, what the, like, this is unjust, unfair, this is ridiculous. How does the world work this way? How does this jerk get to decide my future? Those types of things. That's how I feel about those memories. And yet, like, one of my rock bottom moments is what led me into chaplaincy. And chaplaincy is something that has absolutely defined my ministry as a pastor, and especially in this context. And so, like, I'm not sure what I would be without that experience. And so looking back, it's very easy for me to be like, oh, God, not to say that God, like, made that jerk be a jerk.
Right.
But that in those circumstances of my boss basically running me out of my job and me choosing something else, that God was involved in those choices and in those moments. So like, can you identify anything like that in your story?
We could go on for days, but I'll go as simple as this. There was a girl I went to high school with. I hadn't spoken to her in years. She almost got me thrown off campus one time for opening a beer at 8 a.m. because I just finished an overnight shift and it was a rough one. So I went to my friend's house, I popped open a beer and I sat on the balcony. All right, that was our relationship.
It's like 5 o'clock somewhere, baby.
Yeah, I was like, you have no idea what I've just been through. Don't talk to me. I remembered her a little bit. We recognized each other and we would hang out once in a while, and when it got more friendly after that lovely interaction. And she needed a place to stay and I needed somebody to watch my apartment. And she had no money. And I said, that's fine. I had a cat and I didn't want to have to drag him back and forth. I said, look, it's an 8-hour drive. If you will stay in my apartment and take care of the cat, like, you have to keep the cat alive for 3 months. I think you can handle it. I don't care if you pay me. Just stay. And
make sure the cat lives.
Yeah, and it was like, we had an arrangement too of like, oh, well, I'll do some. And I was like, whatever works out, works out. I'm not that worried about, like, I got bigger fish to fry right now. So like, if you can take care of this, I'll take care of that. And she ended up being my roommate for the next like 6 months. And I don't know what she would have done without that. And I don't know it helped me a lot too, because I needed somebody there to help with some of these things. So like it ended up just being a perfect win-win. On top of the fact that, again, we talk about my husband, I was starting to like date and hang out with people in Pensacola, realizing that this wasn't working out well for me. And I don't know. John is the good guy.
Dating in Pensacola is a nightmare.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're being hard on Pensacola today.
Love ya.
We're just kidding. Please.
We're so sorry,
Please
Pensacola.
We're not.
don't feel bad.
Maybe just be better.
Maybe work on it.
But John played the long game. He was my friend and like would help me out. And I mean, like I would go on bad dates and I'd call him up at like 10 o'clock at night or and be like, it was awful. Can you meet me at my house?
He played the long game.
Yeah, big time. I'd be like, can you come meet me at my apartment and we can drink a beer and watch a movie? He was like, I'll be right there.
Hell
like,
yeah, dude.
Yeah, of course. That was a no-brainer.
Yeah, you're right. These dates do suck.
Yeah,
You're right.
They're awful.
You should be treated much better than that.
So I go back home because I was having to deal with all these treatments and stuff. Well, if people don't know this, John and I knew each other as kids. His parents lived like 2 miles away from my mom's house. I had no bedroom in my mother's house because when I left, she gave it to one of my other siblings.
Cool.
So like his parents graciously let me stay at their house so I could have a bed. And like just little things like that. It was so funny because in that time, like I just had nothing. I had no job. I was dealing with all these medical issues. I had all these things that I was just dealing with and like, oh, you need like a companion, somebody to be with? Here, we'll just stick them right next to you. No big deal. Oh, you need somebody to watch your place? Here.
How'd that work out? What ended up happening with John? Where is he now? Do you know?
Yeah. Well, what time is it? The baby monitor will show me.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it turned into this whole, it was this just pivotal change. And if I named all the things that in that like 3-month span went for the better, again, we'd be here all day. Yeah. And some of it, no doubt, was hand of God. Some of it, I think, just laid out nice, but I can't even, I would not be where I am right now in any sense. I wouldn't be with this church. I wouldn't have my son. I would not be in the situations that I'm in. I mean, like, we've got it good.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I would have been otherwise. Like, what if I stayed in Pensacola? Most people I know that stayed there aren't there anymore. Because
Pensacola.
I know, I'm so sorry,
a
Pensacola.
fate worse than death. How about you, Andrew? What comes to mind when it like pivotal moments? Can you see God at work in those low times now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hanging out with a lot of those people and putting so much effort into trying to be what they wanted was extremely detrimental to my mental health. It was a ton of effort to
Which
keep
is,
up.
I think, par for the course. If you identify with that, you're not taking crazy pills. Like, that's normal. It's hard as kids. We have you want to be friends? All right, now we're friends. As an adult, it's very hard to find, and especially in this context, we're increasingly divided. Social media has a significant influence on how we interact. Like, it's harder now. You're not taking crazy pills. It is harder now.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. But yeah, so I was spending so much effort trying to keep those things up, and it does sort of feel like, I'm not saying that like Hannah was like a divine angel dropped upon me to fix my life, because obviously like nothing's perfect. It's not like everything was magically better, and obviously it was worse for a little bit, as I just said. But it does feel like it was sort of like a nudge in the right direction to be like, hey, like there's better out there for you. You don't have to settle for this. You don't have to be putting in all this effort just to get like a morsel of affection and care back
it's like
from people.
You know how this hurts? You don't have to hurt all the time.
Exactly.
Like, and so I want you to keep telling your story, but like this is one of the important points that I think this text emphasizes. And it's an important theological difference. A lot of prosperity gospel kind of has this take of, hey, when you're going through those moments and when things are bad, God's with you, so don't feel bad.
Yeah.
And that's actually not really good. That's actually really bad for you. When it feels bad, it's actually much better for you to go like, this feels bad. Why? Like, what is feeling bad and why? And the Wesleyan Methodist kind of grace-centered model of theology says God is with you in the feeling bad, and sometimes God is in the feeling bad. God is like, you shouldn't settle for this. You deserve more than this, and that's why it feels bad. And like, I want more for you, I'm calling you to more. And so like, any gospel that says you shouldn't feel bad ever is a lie. And like, there is something in the like, it feeling bad motivating you to get the hell out of there, you know? Like,
yeah, I mean, any pain is your body or your brain or your soul telling you like, something's wrong, fix it.
Yeah.
So this can stop.
Right, something's gone wrong. Yeah.
But yeah, that was a lesson that I absolutely needed to learn. I'm glad I learned it earlier as opposed to later. I've known people that have learned that kind of thing much later in life.
And I'm sorry, this is my chaplain coming in. As someone who just had to put my dog down, that feels bad, but there's a difference between, that's not the type of bad feeling I'm talking about. Grief is a normal byproduct of living. So it's not to say that I miss my dog, something's gone wrong. That's not what we mean. What we're talking about is a very, like, you can tell the difference.
Yeah.
It's almost like a social pain. It's almost like there's a pain of like, I don't think that person is supposed to treat me that way. Like that type of pain. Not I miss my grandmother who died.
Yeah.
So I'm just
no matter what, you should identify the source of the pain. And if it's something that you can't change, then like
if it's a natural, like, dogs die.
Yeah.
And so
you can't
grieve,
bring them back, but like
let's grieve, let's enact grief, and let's cooperate with that. But if it is like, I'm being mistreated here, well, hell, you can do something about that. Like, we can enact some change on that one, like. So I'm sorry, I kept interrupting you, but I just think those
that was
are
pretty much good in my thought. Although I did just notice that the timer is not.
Yeah.
I know. I noticed that a while ago. I have no idea how long we've gone.
That's long.
We've just been chatting.
Yeah.
okay.
So anyway, I do want to say here to sum up. That's my job as pastor. Sum up. Here to sum up. One, as I've said, there are naturally, inherently in living, sad places in life. And we can cooperate with grief, and we can be with loved ones, and we can accept support. If you're in a position where you're really existentially in pain, where you're being called to be something you're not, or as the text says, you're being shoved into a place where you have the mind of an animal. Like my example was my early dating life, and when I like texting someone and being like, oh, well, what I meant to say, hold on, and like sending 7 texts and being like, what are you doing, dude? Like, I can see myself doing it. Like, that's the mind of an animal, It's like, I know not to do it, and I'm doing it anyway. Like, that's the mind of an animal, So if you find yourself in those places, really lean into where does it hurt? What's going wrong? Trust that God's grace is in those places. Trust that those low moments and kind of leaning into and examining and engaging the pain of that God's grace is sufficient, and that you can actually experience redemption and transformation and renewal in the midst of that. It's not don't feel the pain because God is good. It's no, God is good, so you are safe to engage that pain. And you are safe to really ask yourself what's going wrong here, because God is good. And don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. Like, join a community. Find a church that you can trust. Find a friendship group that makes sense to you. And if you can't find one, join us online. Email us at chris@kindredumc.com. Email me. I'll send you a link. We do this every single week. You are not alone, and you don't have to go through this alone. You can do it with people who have been through this process over and over again, and will continue to go through it, because that's kind of what life is. Like, it's not like a one and done thing. So anyway, any final thoughts? All right. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.
Amen.
All them and all women.
Even Pensacola.
Even for those in Pensacola.